Howdy, folks. Good morning to Cattle. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Cattle Trails Showcase. I'm Ron Wilson, Poet Laureate. Glad to be your host. We're really glad to have you with us. Today, we welcome members and guests of the International Chisholm Trail Association who are participating live. We also send a howdy to all of those watching on YouTube and seeing the recording. So thanks to all of you for joining us. For those participating live, we do have a request. At the bottom of your screen, there should be a button and a little word balloon icon that says chat. And so our request for this morning is for you to go to the chat and type in your name, your location, and the third thing we're asking for is a favorite female Westerner. That's our theme today is Cowgirls. And so we want you to put your name and your location in the chat along with a female Westerner. That could be a historical figure. It could be a TV or movie star. Maybe it's a family member, an aunt, an aunt, sister, mother. Maybe it's a rodeo performer. So just for fun, we invite you to put into the chat function your name, your location, and a female Westerner. We'll see how we do on that. This showcase is brought to you by the International Chisholm Trail Association, officers of which are Dennis Katzenmeyer, is president. Michael Grauer, who's on with us, is vice president. And Nancy Lawrence, who's on, is secretary, and Mary Lou Rivers is our treasurer. That group has been working hard to promote the Chisholm Trail as well as the Western Cattle Trail. The purpose of our Cattle Trail Showcase is to continually highlight the community's historical elements, museums, and other attractions along the Chisholm and the Western Trail. We plan to do these sessions every month on the second Friday of each month at 10 a.m. So we hope you can join us each month. So it's time for our speaker. And in a minute, I'm going to ask Lonnie Steben, who is chair of our showcase committee, to introduce the speaker. There is an opportunity to put questions into the chat. And so we invite you to type your questions into the chat and we'll take those at the conclusion of the speaker. So with that, let me turn the floor over to Lonnie Steben from Clearwater, Kansas, to introduce today's presenter. Lonnie.
Thank you, Ron. We're excited today to have Bethany Dodson from the National Cowgirl Hall of Fame and Museum. And Bethany's been in the museum field for 19 years, and she's worked for nearly 8 years at the Cowgirl Hall of Fame. So she's seen a lot of different museum history. She is in charge of the research and education manager at the museum. And Bethany, go ahead and take it away.
Well, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today about the National Cowgirl Museum and Hall of Fame here in Fort Worth, Texas. We are the only museum in the world solely dedicated to honoring women of the West and from around the world who display extraordinary courage and pioneering spirit with their trailblazing efforts. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Is that okay? Okay. Can you see my screen? Okay.
We're not seeing it yet. Let me see if
I'm seeing it.
Adjustment here.
Yeah, Ron, I'm seeing it on my end.
I see it here. This is Scott.
I see it. This is Michael.
Okay, are we
I
good?
see it out here in California.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So the mission of our institution, as stated on the screen, is the National Cowgirl Museum and Hall of Fame honors and celebrates women, past and present, whose lives exemplify the courage, resilience, and independence that help shape the West and fosters an appreciation of the ideals and spirit of self-reliance they inspire. the museum proudly celebrates living and deceased honorees who represent diverse backgrounds, ethnicities, and cultures. In the 46 years since our inception, we have honored 243 women by induction into the Hall of Fame and countless others through our exhibits, educational programming, and events. It all started in 1975 in Hereford, a small town in the Texas Panhandle. In 1974, the town's Chamber of Commerce was trying to establish a big event that they could be known for, that would bring people and revenue to the town. Bill Albrecht and Roy Fobion, both members of the Chamber of Commerce board, met with then president of the Girls Rodeo Association, Margaret Clemens, to convince her to agree to an annual GRA-sanctioned all-girl rodeo and to establish a Cowgirl Hall of Fame in Hereford. To persuade her, they had to have it as the first significant rodeo of the season in May, and the purse had to be as large as $7,000. Margaret really set them up for success. She chose Jim Shoulders to produce the stock and Clem McSpedden as the announcer. The three-day event was a smashing success and was nearly sold out. The two related projects were planned simultaneously, with the Hall of Fame inductees honored on the first day of the rodeo. They brought with them rodeo mementos to be put on display. Roy Fobion, seen here, was the first president of the board of directors, and it included the likes of Margaret Clemens, also seen here, and women such as Dale Evans. They really wanted some star power to prove to everyone that this was a serious enterprise. They also had the city provide property for the future site of the museum, which you can see in this picture. Now, the displays and artifacts were originally housed in the basement of the Jeff Smith Public Library, and the high school was kind enough to lend them a typewriter for correspondence. Margaret Formby eventually joined the board and was president from 1976, and then became the first executive director of the Hall of Fame. Under her watch, the museum broadened the focus to reflect a more diverse background of the many women who helped shape the West. She worked hard also to expand the museum collection's diversity as well. While the original proposed building never materialized, the museum was gifted a large private residence and moved into it in 1981. You can see that in the top picture, that's Margaret standing in the courtyard. You can also see a couple of the original exhibits from the inside. While the calls with research questions came in very regularly, it was hard to get people through the physical doors after the initial excitement died down. It became increasingly clear over the years to Margaret and her staff that the museum needed to move to a larger, more traveled city for it to continue to grow. Fort Worth threw their hat in the ring, and their proposal was chosen over several other cities for the move in 1994. The end of the transition by 96 brought in a second executive director and a lot more board members to really push the museum mission forward. Patricia W. Riley became the second and is the current executive director of the museum. Over her tenure, the museum has been built, fully renovated, and hosted countless exhibitions. She also is the daughter-in-law of famed cowgirl Mitzi Lucas Riley. They broke ground in the Fort Worth Cultural District on the west side of the Will Rogers Memorial Center, which you can see in the background of that top photograph, which is the home of the Fort Worth Stock Show. It is now surrounded by the Fort Worth Science and History Museum and the brand new Dickies Arena. The museum opened its doors in 2002 to a lot of fanfare, a parade, there were several concerts, and a gala. You can see the finished building in the top left corner. The original exhibits were divided by competition, ranching, and entertainment. On the top right, you can see a Richard Haas mural that adorns the east side of the building. In 2015, the museum began full renovations of the galleries and public spaces. The interior spaces were designed by the Paris architectural firm Projectile. The renovation was completed in 2 phases, starting with the first floor. These were completed in 2015, which included the Grand Rotunda Mobile, which you see on the left, and the Anne Marion Gallery, which you see on the right, and hitting the mark, Cowgirls in the Wild West Shows Exhibits Gallery, which I'll show you in a moment. Now, the mobile on the left has 100 moving pieces, weighs over a literal ton, and features honorees from the Hall of Fame, special award winners, as well as other notable cowgirls. The mobile is a mixture of still images and video clips. The video footage we change out every year to feature the newest inductees and award recipients from the Hall of Fame. Now, hitting the mark, Cowgirls and Wild West shows gallery highlights those women who were immensely popular during the heyday of Wild West shows, and we heavily feature the life and career of Annie Oakley. The name of the gallery was inspired by the following Oakley quote: "Aim high at a mark and you'll hit it. No, not the first time, nor the second, but maybe not even the third. But keep on aiming and keep on shooting, for only practice will make you perfect." Most of these cowgirls employed in these shows, they learned their skills. They were gained from working on family ranches. They built upon them and successfully gained professional jobs in these Wild West shows. They were able to travel the world and saw things most women of the time could not. They earned their own income and were afforded additional opportunities. Wild West shows were traveling vaudeville performances in the United States and Europe, creating a romanticized version of the American West that actually continues to influence the world's perception of the United States today. The most important and well-known Wild West show was Buffalo Bill Cody's, and it was formed in 1883 and lasted until 1913, though it certainly wasn't the only one. There were many. As you look to the right edge of this photograph, you can see one of the gallery's highlights. This is one of Buffalo Bill's Wild West show linen parade flags from around 1895 to 1910. Now, parades were a big part of Buffalo Bill's advertising strategy, and boy, did he know how to sell it. When these flags were led the parade into town, people had already been reading about the show, had seen the posters, and were excitedly preparing to spend a day and a half's wages to attend with their family. The parades announced the arrival of the shows, and they really attracted a lot of attention and large crowds. The female performers, as I said, of these shows were wildly popular, and the most notable among them was Annie Oakley. The fifth of 7 surviving children, Annie Oakley was born Phoebe Ann Moses in Ohio in 1860. Her father died when she was 6, and soon after she was sent to live elsewhere for nearly 5 years due to the family's poverty. Annie returned as a teenager and helped to feed the family through her hunting skills, and she would sell the excess meat to a local hotel. This hotel owner set up a shooting contest between Annie and a well-known marksman of the time, Mr. Frank Butler. Annie won, scoring 25 hits out of 25 shots. It definitely did not hurt Frank's feelings, because the two were married a short time later. They traveled together as a shooting act, and when Frank realized that the audience preferred to see Annie shoot rather than himself, he decided to step back and make the publicity about Annie. From then on, he was her manager. They joined Buffalo Bill's Wild West show in 1885, and Annie performed with Buffalo Bill for close to 2 decades as they traveled nationally and internationally. She retired in 1913. Now, there are a number of artifacts in this gallery that speak to Annie's personal and professional life in this exhibit, such as her gold wedding ring, a needlepoint belt, a trunk, and furniture she used in her tents while traveling, as well as a lot of photographs of her using them. In this picture, you can see a statue of Annie holding a shotgun. Ordered and shipped in 1883, this is likely the gun that Annie referred to as my first real gun. This gun has not been held outside of her blood relatives until the museum acquired it in 2013. It is probably among the ones she took with her on her first European tour that included a performance for the Queen of Victoria for her Jubilee. A very popular takeaway souvenir for this gallery is our Wild West show photo booth. You can pose for your photograph with multiple choices that place you into a vintage image. And then you can print them out and text them or email them to yourself. This has proved also very popular with the staff, obviously. The Ann W. Marion Gallery is named after 2005 Cowgirl honoree Ann Windeful Marion in honor of her steadfast support of Western heritage, as well as her patronage for the arts. Currently on display is Tough by Nature, Portraits of Cowgirls and Ranchwomen of the American West by artist Linda Lanker. Here you see a variety of the mediums that Lanker worked with to best capture the likeness and personality of each cowgirl, including oil, acrylic, egg tempera, charcoal, and pencil, as well as a number of works with stone and plate lithography. Our two stairwells leading upstairs contain our collection of equine-themed Hermes scarves. Now, Hermes got their beginning as a tack company for horses in the early 1800s. Hermes handcrafted harnesses and bridles for carriages in Paris, France. The company eventually added and expanded and added a lot of other luxury items, including silk scarves. Hermes has over 2,000 unique designs, and the horse motif is the most popular. The scarves chosen for this gallery represent the various partnerships and intersections of the horse, the land, and people. I wanted to point out the Caesar Kleberg Wildlife Conservation scarf you see here. It was a 6-year collaboration among 2019 inductee Janelle Kleberg, Kermit Oliver, and Hermes. After running the King Ranch with her husband, Tio Kleberg, Janelle and Tio felt very protective over the native lands of South Texas and dedicated themselves to its preservation through the Caesar Kleberg Wildlife Research Institute for Wildlife Conservation. This scarf was produced as one way to raise awareness for the need to protect the delicate ecosystem of the Laguna Madre and the coastal region of Texas, which hosts more species than even the Everglades. It is resplendent with Texas wildlife, and Hermes donated a portion of the proceeds to benefit their protection. I wanted to show you the extra little close-up so you could see the incredible detail that goes into these scarves. As you move up the stairs to the second floor, you encounter the Kip Moncrief Galleries, home to its Never Just a Horse exhibition, which examines the partnership between people and horses, especially through the Hall of Fame honorees' careers and experiences. The renovation of its second floor began in early 2018 and reopened to the public in March of 2019. The space is open concept with 5 islands exploring different aspects of the relationship between women and horses. Each island features various saddles, artifact cases, art pieces, and interactive touchscreens. As you move clockwise through the space, you find yourself at the first island that explores that relationship through the lens of health and healing. You'll find all kinds of artifacts and items from Dr. Temple Grandin's, Margaret Dickens, and Patricia E. Kelly's equine therapy programs, where working with and riding horses can provide marked improvement to a person's physical and mental health. The next island focuses on the arts using the horse and Western lifestyle as inspiration. Among the displays, you will find a sculpture by Verl Goodnight, pottery by Maria Martinez, Dale Evans saddle and typewriter, as she was also a songwriter, an author, and a pink guitar signed by incoming inductee Miranda Lambert. Towards the center of the space, the more traditional use of horses through ranching and settlement is explored through artifacts found on many famous ranches, including a dinner set of Henrietta Kings from the King Ranch and some branding irons. Around the bend, the next island jumps right into competition. Saddles, armbands, buckles, and trophies are all displayed from old school rodeo cowgirls such as Vera McGinnis, Tilly Baldwin, and Mary Parks, to GRA founding cowgirls, Thena Mae Farr and Nancy Binford. From bronc and bull riding to barrel racing, reining, and cutting, you really begin to appreciate these women for the athletes they truly are. One of our international cowgirls featured on this island is German-born Dr. Angelika Trabert. She was born without legs and only 3 fingers on one hand. She is a multi-champion and para-Olympian equestrian who is also an anesthesiologist who just happens to spend her free time offering free medical services in rural Guinea of West Africa. Here you can see a few of her multiple awards, including 2 Olympic medals. The last island focuses on the types of businesses that spring up in the equine industry: horse breeding and training for thoroughbred races, auctioneering, and horse supply and training for the movie industry are a few examples. 2018 honoree Camilla Naprouz was one of the youngest horse masters to work in the movie industry. She's turned her family business, The Devil's Horseman, into one of the leading film industry horse suppliers in the world. She served as the horse master for the Wonder Woman movies and all 8 seasons of Game of Thrones. This includes a variety of different things under this type of job, from collaborating with stunt coordinators, training actors on how to ride, and designing and choreographing high-speed sequences that involve hundreds of galloping horses, horse falls, and stunt riding. This island also features a saddle from the show Game of Thrones. You might have noticed the large video screens through these pictures. There are 9 screens that wrap around 3 walls, and they feature panoramic footage and sounds of pastoral morning and evening scenes shot in Glen Rose, Texas, at the historic 4 Sixes Ranch, and in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. Every 20 minutes, when the lights dim, life-size horses gallop out of the darkness and appear to surround you. It really does stop people in their tracks, especially people who have not really had the opportunity to be around horses in person. And it really gives them this opportunity to get a sense of how majestic these animals really are. Now, there are 2 interactive rooms in this space. This space, the first is our bucking bronc room, and the horse on the left allows you to rock back and forth, and then there's my little buckaroo. Ah, well, he's still working on his form. Anyway, this allows you to text or email yourself the footage as a little fun souvenir that can be posted on social media. Our next interactive room is our Western design room. Now, this space is a dark room when you walk in, and it features what looks like a really big iPad, and it allows 2 people to use it at a time. And it allows you to design a horse or a boot or a shirt utilizing designs found in our collection artifacts. You are further immersed as the designs you choose while building your item are projected on the walls all around you. There's a shirt by Fern Sawyer, gives the history of Fern Sawyer. You can change the colors. You're also learning what the different parts of a boot there are called. You can see the designs generating on the walls. This one is also very popular among the staff, and we get a little competitive about it. And there you go. It is an interesting way to allow people to explore their creativity while learning about artifacts that we might not have out on display. Unfortunately, this room is currently closed due to COVID concerns, but we're hoping to reopen it very soon. Now, as we move outside, the Alice Walton Cowgirl Park was unveiled in 2019. This public green space behind our building is directly across the street from Dickey's Arena. The bronze in the foreground is the most decorated military horse in US history, and her name is the Staff Sergeant Reckless. This little mare held official rank in the United States Marines and served in many combat positions during the Korean War. She was originally purchased from a local racetrack in Korea and was trained to carry ammunition while under fire, as you can see in the lower right-hand corner. And you can also see one of the shells in the top left-hand corner. One mission, she completed 51 solo trips, covering 35 miles in a single day, transporting over 9,000 pounds of recoilless rounds. She carried wounded soldiers back on return trips, and she was wounded in the process. Sergeant Reckless retired in the US in 1960 and died in 1968. She was buried with full honors at the Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton in Oceanside, California. There's a fantastic book about her by Robin Hutton. I strongly suggest, if you're interested, to check it out. Now, the mural you see behind her is actually an abstract of a hand-tooled Western saddle that is constructed of tens of thousands of small pieces of glass, painstakingly hand placed together to create this mosaic created by Evergreen and the artisans of the family Malini in Italy. At our root, obviously, is the Hall of Fame and remains essential, as you've seen from our mission statement to our exhibits. That first year, 3 women were inducted: Alice Greeno Orr, Jackie Worthington, and Sissy Thurman, all legendary rodeo champions. Since then, we have inducted 240 other women. One can become inducted under the following fields of influence: champions and competitive performers, trailblazers and pioneers, ranchers, that is stewards of land and livestock, artists and writers, entertainers, and contributors to the Cowgirl legacy. And I'd like to elaborate on what that last one means. It is defined by women who work to open equine culture to those who might not otherwise become exposed to its historical importance or its contemporary influence. Serving as role models within their communities, these honorees are ambassadors of a cowgirl way of life by utilizing it to positively impact the lives of those around them. Now, we call them fields of influence instead of categories because they're flexible. So many of our honorees are multifaceted, incredibly talented women that fall into multiple categories. One inductee I would like to spotlight is a trailblazer, and her name was Elizabeth Johnson Williams, born in 1840 and is known as a cattle queen of Texas. She began her career as a teacher before she made her fortune investing in livestock and real estate. She was very intelligent and had a way with numbers. She took advantage of a prime money-making opportunity by keeping track of financial records for cattlemen passing through town. With this extra income that she earned from this side hustle, she was able to invest $2,500 in stock with the Evans Snyder Buell Cattle Company of Chicago. Within 3 years, she sold it for $20,000. She also began investing in real estate, owning a formidable amount around the Austin area. In 1871, she registered her own cattle brand under the name Elizabeth Johnson. By 1879, when Johnson married Hezekiah Williams, she was already wealthy. In fact, she asked him to sign a prenup agreement stating that their business, property, livestock, and financial accounts would remain separate, which was really a rare move for the time. Despite her financial independence, she and Hezekiah proved really deeply devoted to each other. He was known to enter into risky business decisions that would often leave him in a financial mess, but Lizzie's allegiance always met him with comfort and alone with interest. They each had their own herd of cattle, and together they took trips up the Chisholm Trail. Of course, Lizzie drove her own herd, which earned her the title Cattle Queen of Texas. At her death in 1924, her estate was valued at well over $2.3 million by today's standards. That brings us to class of 20 of 21. And I'm just going to talk about these fantastic 5 women quickly from left to right. Catherine Cusner was one of the first women to ride for the United States equestrian team and the first American woman to win an Olympic medal in equestrian competition. She also became the first licensed female jockey in the United States in 1968. Miranda Lambert is a country music singer-songwriter who started her career in local Texas bars and released her debut album in 2001. Among many other awards, Lambert has been honored with more Academy of Country Music Awards than any artist in history. Next up, 8-time Women's Professional Rodeo Association, Larry D. Guy, is the winningest female roper in the world with over 33 championship titles and more than 1.5 million in career earnings. The late artist Pop Shalee, that you see there, was born in 1906 and was known for her influential two-dimensional style of Native American painting with stylized depictions of forest scenes and wildlife. Her work has been featured in museums such as the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. Last but definitely not least is Lavana Koger, who goes by Shorty. She is an Oklahoma native with over 40 years of experience in restoration, fitting, sewing, and design of cowboy hats. She started Shorty's Cowboy Hattery in 1990, which is one of the few entirely women-owned and operated custom hatteries in the United States, and she is one of today's leading industry hatters. Their induction ceremony will take place at a luncheon on October 26th of this year in the Dickies Arena. Well, that kind of wraps it up for me. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I hope that it has sparked an interest for you to come and visit us. There are plenty of other fantastic elements of the museum I've not even touched on that will really make your visit worth the trip.
Thank you, Bethany. Ron, do you see any
Thank you.
questions?
I'll check for questions. I'm seeing in the chat an awful lot of positive feedback. Loved this is one comment here. Bethany, two things. Number one, in the words of George Strait, how about them cowgirls? This is amazing what you have presented and the accomplishments of these women. It's absolutely remarkable. And the second point I would make is the technology, the interactive technology that you have built into that museum is remarkable. It's exciting that kids can actually do those things on that giant iPad and create those designs in real time. So I commend you. Let's maybe ask a couple of quick questions about basics. I had to ask Bethany yesterday, you are reopened after COVID, right? Everywhere but that interactive exhibit.
Yes.
Are there days of the week that you are not open, or what's the schedule and admission cost?
Okay, we are open. You would ask me the admission costs. Hang on a minute. Okay, so we are open from Tuesday through Saturday and from 10 to 4. We're closed on Mondays and on Sundays. Hang on just a second. And we are at a discounted rate right now for admission. And that would be adults are $10, seniors and military are $7, children 4 to 12 are $4, and children 3 and under are free. Parking is complimentary with your admission price.
So that's a bargain. Just a couple of points from the chat. Gary Oles commented the museum has changed a lot since I visited about 15 years ago. You mentioned these renovations. My goodness, not just the expansion, but the quality of the renovations. And then Michael Grauer says, I got to see the original National Cowgirl Hall of Fame in Hereford. What y'all have done there in Fort Worth from those humble beginnings is truly remarkable. And it is. We tip our hats to you for the remarkable progress you've made with that museum. That's really incredible. I'm so glad the high school loaned somebody the typewriter when you got started.
It was very generous. And honestly, in Hereford, they really laid the groundwork that allowed us go from running to flying.
Absolutely. Yeah, you've gone from a typewriter to interactive technology online with a computer. That's terrific. Well, folks, thank you for joining us on Cattle Trails Showcase. Just as a reminder, of course, join us on the second Friday of each month. So for next month, that would be Friday, May 14 at 10 a.m. And before I ask Lonnie to say a word about that, I have been asked for another update on the legislation, the federal legislation that would designate the Chisholm and Western Trails as National Historic Trails. We anticipate that that legislation will be introduced Wednesday of next week, in fact. So, so please keep an eye on your emails for the updates. We'll be happy to provide. Now to tell us about our speaker for next month, let's go back to our Showcase Committee Chair, Lonnie Stephen. Lonnie?
Ron, thank you. And before I do that, I just want to share with everybody the reason and remind everybody why we're doing these. It is to promote the tourism and economic development in the communities along the trail. And we felt like we needed to take another step in the designation process and encourage people to start at Abilene and go to Abilene, Texas, or vice versa, and spend time in these museums and spend some money in these communities and help repay all the efforts that have been put forward. And it's just amazing. In fact, Bethany, I kind of have a little bit of a male inferiority complex now after watching your presentation. So, but you did a great job. Appreciate it. Next month, we will be going back up to Wichita, to the Wichita Cowtown. And Anthony Horsch, who will be our speaker, and he's going to put us into the complex and contradictory history of the Old West, which is what the museum attempts to do. It's actually a living cow town, and includes the comparisons of the Native Americans with the buffalo hunters, cowboys and farmers and their interactions, Victorian ladies and saloon girls. So Anthony will be encouraging us to spend some time and come to Wichita and see Cowtown. So we appreciate everybody being on today. Ron?
Thank you, Lonnie, and thank you once again. Can we have a virtual round of applause for Bethany Dodson and the National Cowgirl Hall of Fame and the National Cowgirl Museum? Very impressive. Folks, we encourage you to go to the Chisholm Trail Association website. That is chisholmtrailassn.com for abbreviation for the association. Sign up, join us, and make sure you join us again next month on May 14th. So to close our program today, this is Ron Wilson, Poet Laureate, saying thanks for taking time to join us in this place, and come on back next month for our Cattle Trails Showcase. Happy trails, everybody.